All right, hi everyone again. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the Building a Resilient YOLO workshop series. Today we're really excited. We are going to be focusing on resilience in education. My name is Anthony Volkar. I'm the Public Information Officer for Yolo County Office of Education. And I'm really excited because we have some great speakers here today. And we are going to be talking and thinking about how we're building resilience in education. It's been a really challenging year with COVID. And our students definitely, we've seen issues with mental health and their ability to focus and really be students right now. And we are fortunate to be able to have some experts from the California Department of Education. So let me go ahead and introduce them quickly. So first up, we have Dr. Thomas Herman. He's an education administrator with the California Department of Education. He works at the California Department of Education, managing the School Health and Safety Office. Dr. Herman oversees issues related to school health and safety, including school climate, the California Healthy Kids Survey, and mental health. And Dr. Herman was previously a high school principal in Dixon, which is not far from Yolo County, and a vice principal in Folsom and Woodland. So I had to add that in, Dr. Herman, because it's a local connection for us here. All right, and next up, we have Monica Nepomuceno.
Nepomuceno.
Yeah. Thank you. She is an interim education administrator in the school-based health programs at the California Department of Education. And for the past 12 years, she has worked with the California Department of Education on many mental health and suicide prevention activities, including coordination of the youth mental first aid training, chairing the student mental health policy work group, delivering NAMI on campus high school workshops, and representing the voice of K-12 students on several committees and more. And as you can tell from her bio, Monica is passionate about creating a better public understanding of mental health needs here in California for K-12 students. So thank you both for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and I'll turn it over to the both of you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for having us. I thank you on behalf of the California Department of Education, and look forward to presenting some information regarding mental health, the California Healthy Kids Survey, school climate, and social emotional learning as part of sort of state initiatives that are being run to increase awareness of those programs and broad topics in education. Obviously, this is a time in education that is extremely challenging for all of us, and we feel very strongly and are passionate, as you'll see, I think, regarding what can be done in education to foster the resilience which is so required if our students are to thrive. And I'll allow Monica to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, so as Anthony said, I'm the interim education administrator for the new office. So I'm helping build an office. And Tom, you were supposed to say something that would lighten everything up. So
oh, Monica worked actually for me for several years. She was worked in mental health, and I was in the as I managed the the school health and safety office. And now she's being promoted to interim administrator, and probably will be the permanent administrator of a brand new office. So as she succeeds with this office, I was going to say that she really was nothing until she came to me, and I made her what she is today.
I'll make you proud, Tom. I'll make you proud. Yeah, so I've really, my professional career has been dedicated to elevating the mental health needs and trying to make sure that we are addressing them across the school campuses for K-12 students, and also, you know, recently just making sure that we're also taking care of the staff that are at school, right? Because we know that if we aren't well and we're serving our students, and we're not able to serve them to the best of our ability and to really what we want to do. So with that, I'll just hand it over, Tom.
Great. Well, we're going to begin today by talking about the California Healthy Kids Survey are we doing who's?
I think Holly's, yeah. We were going to start off with just a question though about what
Oh, there we go. Yes, thank you. Before I get to the things that we're going to get to, the California Healthy Kids Survey, building resilience in schools and mental health, but we did want to discuss a bit about resilience. Monica and I will both sort of weigh in a little bit about this. Resilience, as you probably are aware, can be defined in different ways, but it is that essentially that ability to sort of thrive despite adverse conditions. And there are many people who face adverse conditions, whether they're at home, in the community, or what have you, and they're sort of a failure to thrive, and they become sort of subsumed by the issues in their life and have difficulty. And there are others seemingly who are resilient and thrive despite these adverse issues sort of in their life. And what is the difference there? And so that is the question about what resilience is that ability to thrive. And there are things that can happen within an environment to foster that resilience. And in this, we're going to talk about the protective factors that the California Healthy Kids Survey measures. Monica, did you have another addition as well?
Well, I mean, I just think that it's important to note that it's, resilience is not like something that you're necessarily, I mean, you're born with it, but it has to be fostered. But it's not like, well, you're born with blue eyes and you have blue eyes. So, if you're not born with, you can't foster blue eyes, right? So you and I had talked a little bit about some examples of what resilience looks like. And sometimes that resilience can appear to be frustrating for us adults. So for example, I think, Tom, were you going to share about that? The student asking a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was going to address this too, maybe in the idea of caring relationships, which are so essential to resilience. But, students are often starved sort of for adult supervision, for adult caring relationships, as we'll show in the survey. And kind of, an example I recall from many years of teaching is like, let's say you have on the board, you have written, the whole period is written on the board, homework tonight is page 23 to 26, read and answer questions or what have you. And then after class, there will be someone who will come up to me and say, hey, Dr. H, what's the homework tonight? And of course I can say, well, it's been on the board all period. Can't you see it? And, I'm in a hurry to get to my next class, or there's going to be 30 more students entering in about 2 minutes and I have to start. And really that is an expression of a young person reaching out for adult connection, which they may not have in their life. And so teachers, and whether they're bus drivers or teachers or a lunch person in a cafeteria, should be honored by questions like that and by students who reach out to them. So it is such an opportunity to reach back to that student who is seeking that extra attention. And there's so many subtle ways to do it, and it forms really the essence of what a caring relationship is. What Bonnie Bernard referred to as that sort of sustained kindness, that quiet availability to students, whether or not they actually refer that student to services or what have you. But irrespective of that, just their availability for students in a caring relationship, that what she also called that unconditional positive regard. Okay, go forward and we'll talk about the California Healthy Kids Survey. It's part of the California School Climate, Health and Learning Surveys. I think most of you, I hope, are familiar with it. And we can go to the next slide too. We have many slides today, so I don't want to linger on some of them. We're just going to go right through. But the survey measures supports and engagement. It measures school safety, and it measures mental health and substance use. in the last, I guess for about the last while, 70% of local education agencies, school districts have given the survey every other year, which is sort of the history of giving that survey. And so 70% are giving that particular survey. And in fact, almost 40% are giving it every year now. And that's because of the addition of school climate as a measure in the LCAP and that local control accountability plans. And we could go forward. And thank you. There are also optional models that measure the use of alcohol and other drugs, measure school climate, mental health supports, tobacco, social emotional health, which we'll talk about, and other modules that are being created with the appealing to the individual needs of school districts.
And Tom, if I can just add, I think that
Please.
these are just really important tools to use when trying to develop programs for SEL and mental health. And those sort of should be the guiding and driving forces behind whatever your population and whatever your results of the either California Healthy Kids Survey, or if you're using the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, or whatever data collection tool you're using, that really should be the impetus for developing the programs and services that are going to meet the needs that are being revealed by these data collection tools.
Great, thank you, Monica. And next. And so we're just posting the one resource here, that calschools.org. You can see the whole California School Climate Health Learning Surveys. You can look at samples of surveys, and also within that, you can actually look up your own district's data with regard to what are those students saying about their measures of school climate. Thank you. Forward. And getting to some of the data, we're looking at pre-pandemic state average, and then after COVID. For example, let's just look at 11th graders. That 47% of 11th graders were reporting. Currently reporting chronic sadness. And so this is often, a precursor to real pathology, to real depression. But even if it's not, it's its own issue. And then pre-COVID, it was only 36%. So you're seeing sort of the effect of remote learning, of not only remote learning, but just the COVID sort of environment in which people are finding themselves. So there's a lot of stress out there. There's a decrease in optimism and an increase in chronic sadness among the grade levels that we measure in the CHKS 7th, 9th, and 11th. You can go on. Thank you. And then the suicide ideation rates, they remain stable. I didn't like that word when I first saw it, because it's stability in the sense that it's not moving that much, but obviously it is still high when we look at again, 11th graders, say 16% of 11th graders reporting that they have thoughts of suicide. Go on. And then we see this drop in academic motivation that we're seeing currently through the COVID crisis, the decrease in motivation, particularly that we've measured. For a sort of technical reason, we didn't measure the interest in schoolwork and the difficulty in focusing on schoolwork, but we theorize, of course, that those are up as well. Forward. Thank you. And this is, when we talk about one of the main protective factors, we talk about caring adult relationships that I previously mentioned. And this is very interesting and has been of interest for many years, that students report if there is an adult on campus who, quote, really cares about them. And so even prior to the pandemic, you see, for example, that let's say 11th graders again, that 60% of 11th graders would name and would say that they agree or strongly agree that there's an adult who really cares about them on campus. But think of the opposite, the converse of that leaves 40% of students who say that they cannot name an adult at their school who, quote, really cares about them. And so this is very interesting data. And also when you compare that, or you juxtapose that with the staff survey in which they ask students, or pardon me, when they ask teachers, do you really care about all students? And they, of course, will agree or strongly agree that they do. And then so you look at, where is that mismatch, that presumably teachers are well-meaning and they care about all the students, but there are many students who are not feeling that care. And so that is an interesting sort of source of data to talk about in schools. Next, please. And so this just happens to be a quote from Bonnie Bernard, who's a researcher from many years ago, but there are different ways to discuss this. But she talks about these caring relationships characterized by a sense of compassion, despite I won't need to read it exactly, but despite whatever behavior is being presented by these students, that the compassionate caregivers don't take anything personally. And so when I was a new teacher, I love this quote someone talked about. He said, the students, they're not doing it to you, they're just doing it. That is, they're just being students. And often, interestingly, when you study sociology or you study developmental psychology, that students who are expressing humor in the classroom, even though it might be inappropriate, that is a coping mechanism for that student. That student may be the person in his or her dysfunctional family that lightens the load, that releases stress by being humorous at home. And that is a coping strategy. And in schools, sometimes it's not thought of as being very positive, but in fact, it's been quite a coping strategy. And equally with students who express negativity, who sort of cross their arms and sit in the back of the room, that is also a coping strategy that helps them to survive the situation that they're in. And so when we talk about what students bring to classrooms and we honor that experience, we're talking about honoring all experience that they have, because it can be so helpful. These caring relationships are so central to building those protective factors and fostering resilience. Next. And also students do report that that they have increased peer support, that is reaching out and assisting each other during these difficult times. Forward again. Thank you. And also I want to say that those districts that give the California Healthy Kids Survey can sort of can develop their own mental health report card through working with WestEd. So they can look at their school climate indicators and their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 work within schools, and to see how they are faring. So this is a really a good sort of resource. Next. And then as well, there are local templates that can be accessed, in which you're inputting the data from the California Healthy Kids Survey, and then having this resource that can be shared with parents and folks at school sites. Forward, thank you. Also, a monthly newsletter, the California Safe Supportive Schools website, we used to call it, and now it's with wested.org, but it really has a lot of information, and that we encourage you to subscribe to that, and you can see a lot of what toolkits and what schools are doing with regard to improving school climate. Forward. Okay, and now we're going to a little bit about social emotional learning, and we'll see if we can, this plays. It's a very short video.
I don't know if you have to hit the play button, I think. There we go.
With endless views of snow-covered peaks.
I'm not seeing.
Maybe we should just skip that.
Yeah, I think so. We'll sort of cover some of the topics from it on social emotional learning.
How to relate to others and work.
I think the next slide just talks about transformative social emotional learning.
Okay, and we're going to look at a little bit more about social emotional learning. That was a very introductory video that we can manage to do without, but the transformative social emotional learning is what we're working with at the CDE. In addition to social emotional learning, is really the integration of an explicit equity lens and social justice lens into the implementation of SEL. And so when we talk about social emotional learning and building the ability of students to form relationships, to exercise discipline in their lives, to have self-awareness and awareness of the needs of others, we also look at the equity and social justice. So it's really has a lot, the cultural expansiveness and anti-racism that's kind of the foundation of a lot of the work that's being done in schools now. Next. And there's a social emotional learning state team that just disbanded recently. They had a job for a year. You can go forward, please. And they have contributed to a lot of resources that in a link that you'll see in a moment regarding social emotional learning, the competencies and the supports that are available for schools. So there's really a suite of resources that we have on, I mean, you can access any of this on the CD, on the California Department of Education website. And just to say it, to go on to cde.ca.gov and go into the search bar and search social emotional learning, for example, there's just a trove of information there. And I really encourage you to take the time to sort of go through that, to press on links and look at other links, and there's so much information there. Forward, please. And so when we talk about the competencies of self-awareness, of self-management, of social awareness, of relationship skills and responsible decision-making, that these are sort of the tenets of social emotional learning. And within each of those, there is a lot of information available as you when you look at the link there. Oh, that link happens to be for self-management, but you just go to the link, that same link, but less self-management. But you can see information about each of these skills, and these are really foundational to the need that students have to connect, connect with the material, connect with each other, to know themselves, and as they, it helps them as they learn as they engage in their cognitive issues in school, of testing, of learning the material and so forth. But having this foundation in social emotional learning is really essential. Next. And then here are some of the transformational social emotional learning readiness and reflection prompts that are available. You can look at these that can be used in schools. Next. And here's some interpersonal reflection prompts as part of the interpersonal reflection competencies. And they're very powerful teaching tools in terms of getting students, as I say, to connect with each other, to connect with themselves, and to connect with the material. And here are some, these are additional resources found on our web pages regard to social emotional learning. And then explicit school-based SEL resources. And now I'm going to turn it over to Monica for some information regarding the mental health issues that are going on now in schools, and what we're attempting to do about that.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, the state superintendent and the CDE have been really busy trying to make sure that we are providing enough resources and supports. I'm not sure if you are aware that the superintendent is actually sponsoring legislation to get 10,000 school-based mental health professionals on campus. We don't know all the details yet, but that is his initiative. So he's trying to meet the needs that are out there. And so let's just quickly take a look at the scope of the issue around mental health. And so Tom did share a little bit of data on, before and during the pandemic on mental health needs. But here's just some information regarding the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And this is one of those surveys that I mentioned that I said, if you're not using California Healthy Kids, this is another one that you should be using. And it's administered to 9th through 12th grade students in traditional public high schools. And so if you look at this, there was a 32% of 9th through 12th graders in the state felt sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 or more consecutive weeks. Now that was in 2017. And in 2019, that number grew to 45.3%, which is a marked 13.2% increase, right? And then the number of 9th through 12th graders that seriously considered attempting suicide during the 12 months before the survey grew 17% from 2017 to 26.6% in 2019. And that's a significant increase, right? When we're looking at those students that are seriously considering attempting suicide, that's a growth of almost 10%. Next slide. And the percentage of 12th graders in 2019 who actually attempted suicide during the 12 months prior to the survey, that actually decreased a little bit from 9.4% to 9.2% in the 2 years that we're comparing. And then the percentage of actual suicide attempts that resulted in needing treatment by a doctor or any other medical provider increased from 3.1 to 3.7 in the 2 years. And next slide. So all this to say that, there is a significant problem and that we have to address it. And if we put things into perspective, and I'm just going to share this because this is a slide that really kind of is like the boom, puts it in our face, right? The CDC reports that approximately 2 to 3% of students make a serious attempt. And at a glance, 2 to 3% looks like a small percentage, but if we really drive it down, it's significant, right? This means 40 to 60% 40 to 60 students in a school of 2,000. And I was presenting this information to some students the other day, and it really got to them because they were like, wow, this is like 2 classrooms. And so this is a dire need that we need to address. Just recently, the National Institute of Mental Health reported that suicide is the 8th leading cause of death for children ages 5 to 11. That's way too young. And so we are busy trying to, make sure that we give you all some great resources. And let's go to the next slide. So that's part of the data. And I'm going to share another piece of data that actually was, it was gleaned by students, 4 students. And it was gleaned at the onset of the pandemic, and then also during the pandemic. They did 3 surveys, and this is done by the Youth Liberty Squad, which is supported by the California Association of School Counselors and the ACLU. And so let's look at this, right? They did the survey 3 times and administered it to all California high school students, and there were over 500 students that responded, and over 40% of students reported that no one personally asked them about their mental wellness over the previous 3 months that they had been surveyed. And those that did have somebody that reached out to them, the most common people to check in on them were friends, 35%, family, 32%, teachers, 12%, and counselors, 11%. And I feel like we missed a mark here. I feel like we missed a golden opportunity to use those staff that were still being employed, but didn't have a ton of work to do because there were no students on campus. But I'm talking about the campus monitors, the librarians, a classified staff that normally would be really busy if the students were on campus. And so we should have utilized those folks to make those calls and say, hey, I'm Mrs. So-and-so, and I really miss seeing you at school. And, we're looking forward to seeing you soon. Is there anything that you need? We missed that mark. And I know that there were some schools that were doing that, but, students really needed that connection. And as we move along to other data points, only 12% of students reported receiving mental health support from at school, and another 15% reported that they received support out of school. So I'm not gonna, you guys will have access to these slides. I'm not gonna read through all of this because there's a lot of other information that I wanna share, but I just wanted to let you know that this is why we are so busy trying to make sure that you have the supports out there to serve your students. And so now I'm gonna get into describing some of those supports. And so if you there you go. Thank you, Ollie. We are offering staff well-being webinar series. And I started with this because if we are not well, we cannot show that compassion and that understanding to students. And so this is a wonderful webinar series that we are offering in partnership with the Kaiser Permanente and the Healthier Generation, or Alliance for Healthier Generation. And they happen on Thursdays once a month, usually the 3rd Thursday from 3 to 4. If you've missed any of them, you can email me and we can go ahead and send you the recordings to those. You can also look on CDE's Facebook page. They live there indefinitely. And next slide. At the onset of the school closures, the CDE scrambled to create this Help for Students in Crisis webpage, and it contains a lot of helpful resources for addressing mental health and wellness while schools were closed, but also these are good resources to use even while schools are open. And so it contains a lot of different hotlines and crisis lines, and just want to bring your attention to, a lot of times we don't access these resources because we feel we're not in crisis at the time, but these resources actually are for anybody who wants to talk about a problem that they're having. You don't necessarily have to be suicidal at that moment, and it doesn't even have to be about you. It could be about somebody that you're concerned about, somebody that you care about. And next slide, please. Holly, you read my mind. One of these resources that's included in that crisis webpage is the Teen Line, and this is an underutilized resource. It is a nonprofit, community-based organization that provides support to youth on emotional and mental health, and their mission really is to provide peer-based education and support before the problems become a crisis. And so these are students that are trained and are monitored and supervised by mental health professionals, and they are the ones that sort of oversee and manage the calls, the texts, and the emails that are sent to the Teen Line. And they're volunteers. They've been trained, and they're called listeners. So they emphasize the importance of listening to a caller's issues rather than giving advice. And I don't know if you can click on that video if it'll play, but it's just a quick minute video.
Unprecedented times like these can be hard for teens like us.
It is stressful,
scary,
sad,
overwhelming right now, but we
at Teen Line
are here for you.
We at Teen Line are here for you.
Teens like us are answering texts and emails from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and calls from 6 to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 days a week.
So if there's anything you'd want to talk about, feel free to reach out.
So this is a great resource and very short video that you can put on your websites that you can share with students, and also put the link onto different newsletters that you also manage. I just thought that was a very great description. Next slide, please. The other thing that we offer is the Living Work Start online suicide prevention training that was made available by Assembly Bill 1808. And the CDE was charged with identifying a vendor that could provide an online suicide prevention training, and then a County Office of Education that would make this training available at no cost. And so the CDE was sort of used as a pass-through, but this is a 90-minute interactive training for middle and high school staff and students. And the training really helps participants to learn to recognize when they themselves or somebody else, another young person, might be experiencing emotional distress or having thoughts of suicide. And it teaches them how to connect them to professional help. It does not make them be counselors or intervene or provide any kind of counseling. It just really is a connection, and students really benefit greatly from this because they're often seeking help from each other, as Tom mentioned earlier, right? The students are looking at each other for help, particularly during this time when we are experiencing a shortage of staff. And so just wanted to make sure that this is a resource that you're utilizing, because at the state, we're always being asked, can you provide this kind of training? And finally, we get it out there, and sadly, we're not getting as much uptake as we wanted and we expected on this training. So I encourage you to just disperse this information out and get as many folks trained on this. It is for California youth ages 13 and over. And like I said, all school staff as well. And it is available definitely through the end of this school year, but quite possibly through the end of the calendar year, which would be December 22. Next slide. I really wanted to highlight this program because this is actually a partnership between the California Department of Healthcare Services and their Cal Hope program. It's funded by them as well as Blue Sky, and then the IndieFlix, who's the film sort of manager. But this is a statewide initiative that's intended for public middle and high schools in the state, including charter schools. And it includes a documentary and accompanying curriculum that's just really easy to use. And it's designed to raise awareness around anxiety and mental wellness. And it includes interviews with students, teens, educators, experts, and parents. And then there's a really cool interview with Michael Phelps. The goal really is to help educate and people around anxiety and help them identify and understand what those symptoms might be and encourage youth to reach out for help. The film is available for schools to use, and it really should be viewed in community. And so if you want to sort of get a glimpse of what it is and see and preview the movie before you can, before you disperse it out to your students, you can definitely contact us and we will go ahead and provide access to you. There are office hours every Wednesday from 3:30 to 4:30, and I'm thinking Holly will pop in that information. We'll go skip that one because we don't have time. We'll go to the next one. And then A Trusted Space is done by the same executive producer that did Angst. And it really is a complement to Angst. And it's a 43-minute film that features teachers, parents, students, and then experts such as Pedro Noguera from USC and Linda Darling Hammond, who is the president of the state school board. And then it also includes an accompanying research-based SEL curriculum that really provides practical, easy to use strategies. And it specifically shares how to use and develop 5 core social emotional muscles that help teachers to really improve their mental health while also creating trust with youth. And something that's really important to note is that this film and this program was actually created at the onset of the pandemic in response to what the teachers and staff were experiencing. This is available. There is no end date to this, but we would really encourage you to get this out to your staff as soon as possible in conjunction with Angst. They really complement each other. And there is a trailer on the next slide, but we don't have time for that. So we're going to skip through that. And then the next thing that we offer is youth mental health first aid trainings. Again, all of this is provided at no cost. None of these should cost you a dime. And this training is intended for those who serve our youth, and it really helps them to identify and understand and also respond to any signs of emotional distress or mental illness, substance use disorders, and we are offering this right now virtually. It really gives the participants the skills that they need so that they can reach out and provide that initial support. You think about it as CPR, right? As first aid in a medical situation. What would you do? You would stay with the person until medical help arrives, right? You wouldn't actually conduct any of the medical procedures. So think about this in the same way. We don't want teachers or classified staff or any other adults that are not qualified to provide mental health services to do so, but we do want them to know how to identify and how to support and how to do a warm handoff to somebody if there's a crisis. Next slide. And then we're also funded for the CalSTOP Violence Prevention Program, which actually includes youth mental health first aid and also some Sandy Hook Promise trainings. There are 45-minute trainings. One is Start with Hello, and the second one is Say Something. So if you're or interested in part of the CalSTOP violence program or being part of that program, you can contact us. And the 2 requirements are that you get the YMHFA training and also the Sandy Hook Promise trainings. Next slide. The CDE is also offering monthly webinars to address youth suicide prevention and share best practices, lessons learned, and support LEAs in strengthening their suicide prevention and post-vention intervention practices. And we move on to the next one. Cal Hope is a program that's administered by the Department of Healthcare Services, and it really offers lots of different resources. It offers mental health call line, a warm line for anybody that's struggling with COVID-19. It really helps to build community resilience and helps people just recover from disasters, right? Through free outreach and crisis counseling and support services. Next slide. This is a map that was created in collaboration with the California Children's Trust and the Catalyst Center, and it's intended really to be a tool for providers, policymakers, education partners, youth, families, anybody who's looking for services in their community. But what you do is just, if you're looking for an agency, you click on the full screen button, and at the top right, you're going to see the map, and then each one of these little bubbles is an agency. So you just hover over your area, and it comes up with the information on who they serve, what they charge, who their specialty, what their specialty is, and great information. And that map is actually being updated all the time as we're adding resources. And this is Mind Out Loud is a free virtual student event, which we're collaborating with Wellness Together. As you may be familiar, we also collaborate with Wellness Together to host the Student Mental Wellness Conference every year. But Mind Out Loud is something that was born out of this as well. And this is going to be a free student event, virtual, that's going to be offered on Saturday, March 12th from 10 to 4. It promotes student mental wellness, aims to eliminate stigma, and then also provides lots of free resources for suicide prevention in a safe and inclusive environment. And so students that participate in this also have an opportunity to become Mind Out Loud student representatives. And these are high school students who work towards increasing mental health awareness and ending stigma, educating their peers about suicide prevention, and then advocating for mental health and wellness supports. Last year we had, there's a video that goes with this. It's just sort of a recap. But last year there was Angie Thomas, who was the author of Concrete Rose and The Hate You Give. There was Big Sean, who's a rapper. So we just had a lot of high level folks talking about mental health and supporting our mental health and wellness. Next slide. And this is the NAMI on-campus high school. This California Department of Education has been collaborating with NAMI California for a number of years to really bring this and elevate these campus clubs. And NCHS is a student-led club that focuses on mental health and wellness, and it really provides an opportunity that fosters student involvement in youth development. And the clubs are really supposed to provide activities for youth that help decrease bullying and end the stigma that's often experienced by those who are living with mental illness. And students that are involved in NCHS clubs and activities really become lifelong advocates in the mission to eliminate the stigma. If you're interested in, I think there's some spring workshops that are coming up on how to actually establish one of these clubs on your campus. Right now, there's about 80 or 90 clubs throughout the state, and we are increasing those all the time. They're student-led, so any advisor that's overseeing this has very little work to do. And I do believe that we recently received a grant from the Department of Justice where we're going to be supporting the NCHS clubs, and there will be an opportunity for schools to apply for mini grants from the Department of Education. Next is the Directing Change program. We've also been collaborating with them for a number of years. And this program has an annual contest that engages students and young people to learn about the topics of mental health and suicide prevention in an innovative way through film. And so the goals of the program are to inspire a new generation to know the warning signs for suicide and how to support friends, and then also changing the conversation about mental health in families, on school campuses, and in communities, and to also increase help seeking. And if we can play that very short video, sorry, thank you, go back.
Come on, pick up. It's Alex. You know what to do.
Hey, bro. Look, I'm just gonna be totally honest with you right now. You know, I've noticed that you've been acting weird for a few weeks now, and then you didn't show up to school today. And I'm just starting to get really worried about you. I gotta ask, are you thinking about suicide at all? I mean, I realize you can't answer that question because you're not on the phone, but look, if you're listening to this right now, just please leave a number. Just call that number before you make a decision. Look, there are people here to help you go through this. You're absolutely not in this alone. Yeah, I'm here for you too. I'm gonna try your house and see if you're there. Okay, bye.
Orange County Mental Health Crisis Line. My name is Chris. How can I help you today?
Hi.
So that's just an example of the submissions that have been provided by students, and you do it through your school. There's different categories: suicide prevention, mental health matters, through the lens of culture, animated short films, and walk in our shoes for middle school students. And with that, I am going to wrap it up. I'm really glad that I was able to show that video, because that is one of the most impactful videos that I've seen in a very long time. It's short, and these videos can be shared and they can be accessed at directingchange.org. I would encourage you to use these videos however you can on your school campuses. There are a few more slides, but what I'm going to do is just hand it over, because I know we have another speaker. I won't go through these, but as I said, we can share these slides. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
All right, thank you again to both Monica and Dr. Herman. That was a lot of great information, but we appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. All right, so I just want to go ahead and introduce Chris. So Chris is joining us from the Woodland Joint Unified School District. He operates the Community and Family Engagement Program there, what we call CAFE. And this is another highlight of a program that is helping with resilience. And they're doing it a little differently here in Yolo County, which is great. So the program was implemented to enhance the learning environment of students at home and at school by empowering parents and families. So I'm going to pass it off to Chris to go ahead and introduce the program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Monica and Dr. Tom, for your presentation. I look forward to sharing the information that I obtained today with our team. That way they can share it with our schools and our families. We would also like to thank Resilient Yolo for allowing us space to present. Our goal at Cafe is we serve to create and strengthen our families' communication with their schools, district, and community resources. Pictured here, you can see our team of 12 Cafe specialists who serve 16 different school sites from kindergarten through high school. Next slide, please. So before I provide you with more information on our role as Cafe, I would like to first discuss our district's efforts surrounding social and emotional learning, as this is something that is very much relevant to Cafe. At Woodland Joint Unified School District, we are challenging deficit views and identifying the strengths and resilience that our students and families bring to our schools. Our promising youth are navigating challenging times, and we as adults have the responsibility and duty to care for each of our students. Here, we take on a multi-tiered approach. Tier 1, for example, is research-based instruction that impacts all students. So social and emotional learning, professional development for our staff. That way they understand how to meet the needs of our students at their school sites. We use this by collecting surveys. So SABRES, Social, Academic, Emotional Behavior Risk Survey. This is done at our elementary school sites, and they're screened by our staff, where 92% of our students have been screened already. At the middle school and the high school level, we have PASS, Pupils' Attitudes Towards Schools and Staff, where 73% of our students have completed the survey. And here, and speaking to the presentation by Dr. Tom and Monica in terms of suicide prevention, each of our school sites has a crisis response team. So all of our students have someone on their campus that they can go to, or our staffs can use the data that's being collected to make these observations to address the needs of our students to prevent anything from escalating any further. So tier 2, we put our data to work and create interventions that support our students in much smaller settings. And one of the things that I'll be talking about a little bit further is the topic of mentoring. And in tier 3, students, families, and staff have access to individualized counseling through Care Solace. Through Care Solace, the busy work of having to find a provider for oneself is taken care of. I am happy to have been able to use this service for myself and share the ease of use with our families. And a lot of these, and some of these services that we offer come in partnership with our Yolo County Mental Health Department through our Mental Health and Student Services grant that we obtained. Can we go to slide 3, please? So CAFE hopes to empower parents and families through learning opportunities and resources to build relationships and partnerships with the school district, and the community. So one of the ways that we've been able to accomplish this is, for example, not too long ago, we were having a family that was facing a financial crisis. They were facing eviction, and it was brought to the attention of one of our CAFE members who was at our school site. From there, we did some investigating and found that the student had siblings at other school sites. So as a team, we came together to identify, what's going on at home, and how can we work together to build some sort of support for our family. We were able to identify an organization within Yolo County that helped secure our student and their families' housing up until December, and then possibly find them another apartment that they could possibly move into. Secondly, navigating the educational system and utilize a variety of resources available to students at Woodland Joint Unified School District. So one of the ways that, we do this is by actively making phone calls to our families and letting them know, if their students not attending school, or if their grades are falling a little low, what are the resources that our school sites have available to our parents and to our students that they can access for additional support. Supporting a strong learning environment at home and at school. So we're taking the lessons that students are getting at school, and we're taking it home. And the way we do this is by providing our families with home visits. So if attendance is something that's a challenge at the moment, we take the time to schedule an opportunity to visit our families in their homes. If we can't get a hold of them via phone because their landlines might be disconnected, we take the time out of our day to go visit our parents and find out, what's going on. Why is it that students are attending? And here we begin to learn more about the family. We begin to learn that, maybe there was loss in the family. Possibly in one case, there was a mother who shared, I was diagnosed with cancer and I don't know how to have the conversation with my children. So then again, we go back and we investigate what kind of resources can we connect our families to. And then lastly, help our families gain leadership skills. A small group of our families recently completed a Project Inspire workshop series, where now they develop their own, they get the curriculum from Project Inspire to facilitate these conversations that we call parents to parents, or padres a padres, where parents are able to share this information that they learned and they were trained for with other parents in their schools. And thankfully, given the access that Zoom gives many of our families, we're able to target many more families beginning next school year, next month. Next slide, please. So As Cafe, we talk about community, we talk about family engagement. One of the things that we're targeting right now is school, families, and youth. And these are the multiple ways or the multiple conversations that we're having with all of our stakeholders. So with our young kids, we're talking about attendance, grades, academic, social, emotional support, and college and career options. We're also having those same conversations with their parents in terms of facilitating workshops for them, in terms of what are next steps or what are the resources available. But we're also communicating with our schools. So what is it that, what we're observing when we're doing our home visits or when we're making our phone calls, what are the observations that we have made that we can bring back to our schools and share with them to ensure that all parties that are working with our students are aware of what's going on. One of the areas that we want to really focus on growing is our community engagement. And this ties back to our mentorship program. So going back to tier 2 and tier 3, identifying, what are the specific needs of our students. So here we want to be intentional about who we're bringing in to work with our students. And right now, I'm proud to say that we're working on this mentorship program with our targeting specifically our middle schoolers at the moment, because when we're looking at the data, we're seeing that our students that fell through the cracks in middle school continue to fall through the cracks in high school. So who can we partner up with to create those small group settings? And I think an underused resources is our local institutions, Woodland Community College, UC Davis, Sacramento State. So how can we bring in students that have gone through this pipeline, and how can they come back into our communities? So we have our students, even our own students that go off into these institutions. How do we bring them back to our middle schools and our high schools to become a resource and a guide and a mentor for our future students? So that's something that I'm really proud of to be working on, and hopefully it'll be able to really target and address the social and emotional needs of our students through either group tutoring or one-on-one advising. And next slide. And thank you very much for providing me the space to share a little about Cafe with you today.
Thank you, Chris. So if all the presenters, if you want to turn on your cameras back on, I just want to close with one question. So one of the things that I just really liked at the end that Chris was presenting was that family, the youth, the school community. I mean, as we're talking about resilience in education, I mean, one of the takeaways from all of you that you've shared today is that it's going to take more than one group. It's not just educators working in hand, it's working in hand with parents and the staff, and even the students themselves. That slide that you shared about peers helping each other during this difficult time, I mean, I will be thinking about that. So how can we, again, align these systems better with each other so they can really work hand in hand? Do you all have any thoughts about how we can do that? That's a big question.
Say that again.
How can we align these systems so they can all work better? So the state has these programs. Locally, we have our own programs, and we have parents, community, local stakeholders. How can we really work with these programs to get these resources to students who need them? But we're dealing with a lot of just different programs that are trying to do some of the same type of work.
Gosh, I mean, that is the great question, and it needs to be kind of repeatedly asked, because there are always new programs coming up. There's always new sort of community partners and folks involved that want to be helpful. Schools have a history of being sort of separate from their communities in many ways. It was sort of like, leave your kids here, we'll take care of them, and it's just on us. And that has been changing the last many years gradually to the point now where it's just become, in my opinion, very clear that we need this involvement with communities, with state agencies, because the students don't exist in a sort of vacuum. They're a product of their homes, of their community. Whether they be foster or homeless or having difficulty in their own sort of system, family system that's not working well or whatever. And so there's crossover into all these agencies that can be helpful. So I don't have a great answer other than we have to keep asking the question to move forward. And I would offer this too, but to not wait until systems are, quote, aligned to attempt the work. Attempt the work as you try to align, and that's always difficult. But
I don't know that we'll ever be aligned, honestly, because there's just too much going on. As you know, schools have been chronically underfunded for student support programs like this. The state has been grossly understaffed and underfunded for supports like this. So we're all, I just envision us like doing the whack-a-mole, right? Just as things percolate. And I can only imagine what things would have been like if 5 years ago, the legislature listened to us in our, quest for getting more funding for mental health services. And so I agree with Tom. We don't wait to align because we may never get there. And that's okay, right? It's nobody's fault. It's just what it is. But I think that, and I'm trying to think back of when I was an outreach consultant in Galt for like 12 years. And one of my jobs was to connect with the state to find out and mine all these resources at the county level, at the city level, at the state level, and at the national level. And so wouldn't it be great to have a position like that in at least every school district, if not every school, to mine those resources? Because I think there are, as you saw, so many resources. And then how do you really get a grasp on it, right? And how do you first find out about them? And secondly, how do you assess to know which one of these programs and services is going to be right for your community? So it's going to take like one person to try and mine all that stuff and get it out.
And as a state agency, even in a higher level, sort of we deal with that. So we deal with resources from the Centers for Disease Control, from the Department of Justice, from Department of Public Health, social services, issues of Medi-Cal billing in schools, all of these things that are coming up. And so how does anyone sort of look, how can we leverage our resources to work together, even as state agencies? So it's not just like educational agencies and school districts that are dealing with that, but we as a state agency are dealing with it too. So it is, it's just something, that we have to just continually do. And I think reach out, especially in the sense of leveraging resources. Like as a state agency, we get something from Department of Justice, but it has an element about bullying in it or school climate. Well, we also have mental health issues that are, coming from wherever that deals with those issues as well. They all overlap. So how can we sort of, as we apply for our own grants, how can we leverage those resources? And the same with local educational agencies.
So true. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, did you have a comment? Go ahead.
Yes, and for myself, it's definitely, focusing on the youth and the idea of family and familismo comunidad. I think those are things that are really going to help, move the needle forward. At this time, I have a student. It's not just students that are falling through the cracks that are underperforming academically wise, but students that are doing exceptionally well are also falling through the cracks. It's one of those things where it's how do we students that have already navigated some of these challenges themselves, that are in their first or second year of college, and they're going to be able to relate more closer to our students that are navigating this as juniors and seniors right now. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a student, who's Pakistani. And for me, I'm learning about her culture. And it's like, you need to teach me how to have a conversation with your parents so that I don't offend them or to step on their toes. And what resources can we use? So it's, the student wants to hopefully attend Pomona College in the near future. And it's like, can we talk to the Muslim Student Association at Pomona College to help guide that conversation with your parents? So, the resources exist. It's kind of trying to bridge those resources as much as possible. And I think the youthful energy of our kids, I think that's the catalyst right there.
If I can just say something really quick to Chris's point, you hit the nail on the head, my friend. The students are going to be the movers and shakers. So that I would add that. Let's provide this information to the students, and then they're going to trickle it to everybody else. They're the ones that are making the change.
Yeah,
there you
and
go.
Yeah, so true. And it works to all the sort of the tier 1 work in schools. That is this sort of universal sort of climate and culture changing, where students feel more free to talk to each other about issues, whether they're mental health or otherwise, and to have a climate within a school where it's okay to reach out for help. And so this is sort of the beginning of that work that's also preventative in nature.
Great. Well, that is a fantastic closing note, and I would thank all three of you for joining today's panel. I really appreciate the conversation that we were able to have. So just as I'm closing, I just want to send a few reminders about Resilient YOLO. So our third and final workshop is scheduled for March 4th. There'll be a conversation on resilience in healthcare. We have some fantastic speakers lined up, so stay tuned for that. I do want to add that we do have a collaborative. We're planning, as a collaborative, we are planning the Building a Resilient YOLO Summit. It is currently scheduled for May 12th here in Woodland. We'll have an opportunity to connect on this issue and some of the issues that we've been discussing already. In the chat, I went ahead and left a note about how you can find more information about Resilient YOLO. The organization itself meets monthly. We're not meeting this month, but every other month we're coming together as a community organization, a community collaborative, to address issues like this. We do hope that you join us in the future. And with that, all the slides for today's presentation are available online. They are listed in the chat, but I'm going to say it out loud for those of you that are watching online. It is bit.ly, bit.ly, 3 lowercase n, 6 uppercase C1, uppercase AT. If you go on there, you'll be able to access all of the amazing slides shared by all three of our presenters. And thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you for the next webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.